Welcome back, everybody. This is Real Estate Uncensored. I've got an amazing guest. Sadly, no co-hosts with me today. They're off gallivanting, doing their own thing. So make sure to give Gene and Greg a shout out because I want to talk to Beau Beery, my special guest. He's coming more from the multifamily and commercial worlds. In fact, actually ran the #1 Coldwell Banker commercial franchise in Florida, finished top 5 in the nation year after year after year after year, ended up going independent, starting his own firm. But we have a lot of similarities. So we talk a lot about in the show about building up a network of strategic relationships. You're building an influence in your space, becoming an influential kind of like micro famous person in your space, whether that's your local city. It might even be just a suburb that you want to dominate. It could be a certain niche within your city, like you want to dominate everyone that cares about schools in a certain area of your city, whatever that might be. The goal is the same, which is you want a reputation that will last and will stand the test of time. And you want a network of relationships with people that are really in it for the long haul. Beau and I, we were talking before we hit record, just we're going to have a correction of some kind at some point. We had a version of it during the pandemic, but it picked up for residential agents pretty quickly. And so a lot of people really didn't feel what it's like to go through an actual correction where it sweeps out a lot of the people that aren't very good because the market got so hot right away that a lot of people were able to just kind of keep right on trucking. So there's going to come a time when that changes. And really the only two things you're left with are the relationships you have and the reputation in your space. So with that being said, Beau, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate you being here.
Man, beautiful intro. I think you hit it right on the head, and I appreciate you having me.
I'm so excited. Been looking forward to the conversation ever since you connected with my team. We're hooking you up with some other podcasts in the multifamily space, but I wanted to snag you over and talk to our crowd, who is not super familiar with all the multifamily stuff that you've done. Sure. They'll work with investors or they're investing. A lot of our agents are probably investing more in the fix and flip, space than getting into multifamily, but they know investors that are. So tell us just a little bit, maybe how, when you run into somebody in your world, what do you tell them that you do?
I broker the sale of multifamily assets over 10 units. I do conventional, which is another word for like professional housing, right? Like what families live in. And I do student housing. I don't do affordable housing, which would be like a state, sort of a state rent system. I don't do mobile home parks. Those are I don't do senior housing. Those are
little
different niches. Yeah. Mine's just professional housing, which is about 67 to 70% of most assets. And then student housing, depending on the market you're in, it usually makes up maybe 20% of a college town, somewhere in there.
Okay. So what should a residential agent know about the way that your business is different or the same from what they do on a daily basis? Because you're both brokering deals, you're both bringing buyers and sellers together. So you're still the linchpin of the transaction. What's different in your world versus what we might experience more in the residential world?
Yeah, I would say in multifamily brokerage, there is far less competition than a residential agent. So for instance, I'm based in Gainesville, Florida. I cover the northern half of Florida, but I'm based in Gainesville. And in Gainesville, there's probably 1,200 residential agents, right?
Yeah.
Guess how many multifamily agents, guys who only do multifamily, are based in Gainesville?
Good question. I would think like 50 or something like that, but
I'm the only one, right?
Okay.
And in the entire northern half of Florida, I would assume there are 60, 70,000 residential agents. There are about 55 multifamily agents. That's it. And of those 55, if you can imagine, Matt, the 80-20 rule, right, the 20% of us are doing the majority of the volume, right? So that's the difference. From a similarity standpoint, I actually copy residential agents in terms of the way they market themselves in order to gain a competitive advantage for myself. And what I mean by that is, in the commercial real estate brokerage field, particularly multifamily, it can be kind of a stuffy field. Everyone wears shirts and ties. You don't put your pictures on business cards. You don't have a big social media presence. You don't do video. You don't do all this crazy stuff. It's supposed to be a dollars and cents business, right? And what I love about residential agents is that because there are so many residential agents and any homeowner can choose any freaking agent they want, because it's not hard to sell a house, right? What they're really buying is personality. They want to choose someone they like, someone they can reach. And no one is better at marketing themselves for that than a residential agent because of the competition. Mm-hmm. So long story short, many years ago, I started following a guy named Ryan Serhant, who probably a lot of people who are watching this know him. Ryan Serhant is one of the top residential agents in New York, phenomenal marketer. And I started watching the way he built his business. And I love that he's built such an engine, such a presence that has preceded him, that I felt like that cat probably walks into listing appointments and they already know who he is.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to take that same concept, and by adding tons of value to people for free and having the social media presence and doing the training videos and just kind of being out there, which is totally different than other agents, then my whole goal in life, Matt, was when I go to make a phone call, let's say to a new customer who was, maybe it's an investor from California, they own 2,000 units there, but they haven't bought in Florida. They just bought in Florida. I recognize it. I call them up. And when I go to call them up and introduce myself, I don't even get done with saying the words Beau Beery. And they're like, oh yeah, Beau Beery. I know you. I see you all over the place, blah, blah. Like that's my goal, right?
Okay.
And I learned that from residential agents.
That's really interesting. See, I didn't know that before coming in here. So I want to talk about marketing for a second. What was the first step that you took? You mentioned you're doing videos, you're doing social media, whatever. What was the very first thing?
So back before social media and video and all that stuff I was basically emailing high quality market reports, right? Mm-hmm. Things that I knew that customers hate reading 60 pages of market report. Yeah. Nobody likes that crap. And national brokerages are notorious in order to justify the fees they charge agents for putting together 65-page market reports, giving them to their agents to hand to their customers. I knew nobody read that. So my whole goal many, many years ago was I wanted to create a chart, a bar chart, a graph, something that's on one page that has very little text that you could read and understand something in 10 seconds or less.
Okay.
And I would get those out by email and by mailings. And I loved mailings because they're expensive and my competition won't do it. Right. Yep. And so I would get those things out month after month after month after month. And you do that after years and years, you become the data king. Well, once the internet started becoming more, out there and social media, I saw video as like totally the way to go. So actually 2011, I started doing videos, like just really crappy ones. I still have some of those around. Most of them are out of my channel.
Are we talking about like recording on a flip camera or something, those kind of thing?
So I at that time, I actually had big ass cameras and I would record the whole thing all at once because I didn't know how to edit. Okay. Right. So I would record something and I would try to get it all right at one time and I would mess up constantly. So it would take me 6 hours to do something that takes me 10 minutes today. And I'd get 10 minutes into something and mess it up and be like, God damn. I just go nuts. Right. I was just losing it. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I messed up that word again. I had to re-record.
Oh my gosh.
But as things got better, like when COVID hit, that's when I decided to take my video game to the next level. So that was around July 2020. I started learning. I took a YouTube course, on how to do YouTube. I took my wife and I both took courses on video editing, and she does all my editing now.
Nice.
And just learning, what do people search for? How many minutes does the video need to be? Mm-hmm. And I think video for both residential agents and commercial is the future.
Agreed.
There's so much of a story you can tell. And that's been my video has been the basis. And then I use video to both translate into video, text, social media, pictures, graphs, charts, all other stuff.
Yeah. But everything like video is the engine, everything else kind of like as a offshoot of that.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it's the video is sort of where a lot of my time is spent. And then whatever subject matter I'm covering, I also translate it into different forms. Mm-hmm. It could be I could take an 8-minute video and just put it in a pie chart on something I was talking about, just put it on social media, or I may do a blog on it, or I'll write up something in social media, or I'll do an email on it and send it to my entire database. And then every month or two, I put together a 5x11 postcard and I'll mail it, right? Because I know no one's doing mailings these days.
Right. Which is an insane thing because it's not like postage got 3 times as expensive. I mean, it's not that more expensive than it used to be to do direct mail. And yeah, like all of a sudden, people are willing to spend outrageous amounts of money on things like Facebook ads, and they forget about direct mail. I love it. All right. That was awesome. Okay. So quick selfish question before we talk about relationships and stuff. On the YouTube side, do you find that your audience finds you because of the things that they're actually typing in and searching, or is YouTube just doing a really good job of putting your content in front of people that they think might like it? Like, are you actually getting search traffic or is it recommendation traffic?
So what I do is about 2 years ago, or excuse me, a year and a half ago, I took Sean Cannell's YouTube course. So Sean Cannell, Cannell. He has a wonderful, basically a YouTube university. Mm-hmm. And what he teaches, I really enjoyed. I don't think of a topic to do a video on that I think the audience wants. What I do is I use YouTube search engine, and I do what I call the multifamily ABCs. So for instance, in the search engine, I will type in multifamily -A. Mm-hmm. And what happens is it'll auto-populate what the world is searching for right now. Right. And so I'll do multifamily A, and then it'll auto-populate. Okay, I don't like any of those topics. Multifamily B, or I'll do, real estate apartments, Jacksonville, Florida, and then it'll auto-populate. And so what'll happen is it'll auto-populate multifamily, Jacksonville, rent restrictions being put in place by the government. Great, that's what people are searching for right now. So I'll go and do a video on that. That way I'm delivering what the world wants to know about right now.
Got it.
Now that's how I do some of my videos. And then the other half is just something I experience. Like if I was in a transaction and someone did something right or wrong, I'll go ahead and do a video on it and put it out there.
Yeah.
And that's helpful too. But yes, what happens is YouTube, this course teaches you how to title things, how to do the description, how the two of them talk together, all the back end analytics and stuff like that, so that YouTube grabs you and starts putting you in front of other people. Yeah. The two main metrics I go after are percentage of the video that was watched. YouTube loves that. And click-through rate. Right. So if you can be 7% or better click-through rate and more than 70% of your video being watched on average, YouTube says, hey, that dude, Matt Johnson, is sexy as hell. Like people love him. I'm going to start putting him out in front of people who like XYZ.
Yeah, exactly. And I was talking to a gentleman just yesterday, and he mentioned click-through rate. He also mentioned how much of your audience are you retaining at the 1 minute mark. He said that's one of the big metrics they pay attention to. So he has the back end access to like Mel Robbins' YouTube channel, a bunch of like big name personal development people, as well as some people that are in investment, infinite banking and things like that. So I asked him a similar question. He said, it's all about click-through rate. Yes. So your thumbnail is really important. And then he said, basically, if you can hang on to 50% or more of the audience at the 1 minute mark, said YouTube will start putting more traction behind that video because it's looking at it and going, okay, they heard the first minute and they're still in, right? So something to keep in mind for that too.
Yeah. And I think the other reason why 1 minute is used is I've learned through doing this that there are companies out there who I'm sure can try to connect to people on LinkedIn all the time that say, hey, we can boost your video. We can drive traffic to your video. We get it out there. What they do is they're just taking your video and putting it on these crap websites, where on those websites, they pay people to watch a video for 1 minute, and then they get points within that website.
Okay.
It's kind of like,
it's like a view farm or something, basically.
Right. It's a view farm, and 1 minute is the cutoff.
Yeah. Interesting.
Right.
So they're looking for the ad, basically the organic traffic. I love it. All right. So let's jump into the relationship side. So I'm curious, when you look at business and you look in kind of your network of relationships, I'm curious, like how strategic are you, or is this just something that kind of comes naturally and it's an outflow of your personality? So have you always been like this? And then just kind of tell me a little bit about how strategically do you look at the relationships? Are you going for a certain number of really key relationships? Are you doing anything different for different levels of relationships? I want to just crack open your brain a little bit.
Bro, I am the world champion of strategically building championships. Like, I don't know. And it's not because, I always have to have a process in everything I do.
Yeah,
otherwise there's just too much outside noise out there. There's so many ways to get distracted. And so I process everything in my life, my workout, what I eat, when I go to the gym, how do I do my relationships. And so what I do, I believe anyone watching this call can do. I think it's been very, very powerful for me for the last 20 years in this business. There are only 1,967 apartment complexes in the northern half of Florida that I could ever sell.
Okay.
And those 1967 are owned currently by 998 people in the entire world. That's it for the whole northern half of Florida. It's a very small world, right?
Okay.
Now, of those 998, not all of them are going to love me and use me all the time and work with me, right? I know that. I know there's brokers who are bigger and probably better than me, right? Or have better relationships than me. So my commercial real estate coach, who I've been with for a decade, what we do is we concentrate on rank A customers. So we rank all of our customers out of the 998. We rank them A, B, and C. Okay. The A's are your number one customers. These are the people who have you saved in their cell phone. I have them saved in my cell phone. We talk frequently. 79% of my transactions are done with rank A people over and over and over again, right?
Okay.
These are people who respond to my email. They respond to my market reports. They comment on all my social media posts. Like they just, we're supporters.
Just in a relationship with each other. Yeah.
Yeah. And in my database, that represents about 14% of all owners. Okay. Rank B are still great people. Like I do deals with them every now and then. They don't love me totally. I don't love them totally. We don't talk about our wives and children and hobbies as much as I do with the rank A's, right? And so rank B's are currently like 45%. And then the rest is rank C's. Now the rank C people in my world, they could be giant multifamily companies. They could own 30,000 units. Okay. But they're folks who will probably never use me, right? Either they're too big or, their broker they went to college with, and they've known their entire life, right? Or they're someone who holds their assets for eternity and they're going to give them to their kids, whatever it is, that's my rank C. Okay. My whole world, all my time, every day for 2 hours, every single day, Monday through Friday, my 2-hour window of making phone calls and developing relationships is rank A. That's it.
That's it. Interesting.
I live in rank A. So I make basically 3 to 5 calls a day and I cycle through them every 30 to 60 days. Right. And I'm just having conversations and adding value. I'm telling them about what rents are in complexes nearby. I'm telling them about a complex that's sold near theirs. I'm telling them about an amenity I saw in an apartment complex that I thought would work great on theirs. Yeah. I'm telling them about a deal that I heard about that sold in the county that they want to buy in. Whatever it is, I'm just trying to add value. I hardly ever ask for listings. Right. I hardly ever ask for business. They know what I do. If you're a broker listening, when you talk to someone, they know you're a broker. Yeah. They know how you make a living. They expect and almost hate that when they see your number calling, that they think you're going to ask them for a listing. When they see my name come in, they know I'm going to add value. So my people answer my call and answer my emails because I really am there to impress them. I just want to, there's nothing better, Matt, and you know this because you're phenomenal at this in your business. There's nothing better than truly making a difference or adding some sort of value to someone and they make some money from it or they improve their lives, whatever. Like that's awesome for me. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And if you keep doing that consistently, you become known as that person. And so when it's time for them to sell, if you've done your business correctly, there is only one person they think of.
Yeah. It's really cool to see, like when you focus on, for example, like strategic introductions, which is how you and I met. When you make that a part, like just a regular part of just your life, and it's something we always sit down with our team internally and just look for ways to introduce my A's to the people we just met, whether they're podcasting gives us a great excuse. So it kind of greases the wheels a little bit easier than other industries, but it's really cool when it goes beyond what you expect. So one time years ago, I introduced one of my clients to somebody that I'd met through podcasting. He was another podcaster. and the podcaster put my client on. They hit it off so well. My client invited them to come out. They ended up like living in his house for a month. They ended up starting a business
awesome.
together. They were business partners for like 2.5 years, something like that. And I'm just sitting back watching, going, "Hey, this is pretty cool. Like, you guys are both cool guys. I figured you hit it off, but I didn't expect this." Yeah, it's really cool to see things like that happen where you just kind of play a small role in it. But yeah, just making things like that.
Remember you forever on that.
Exactly. Yeah. And all those good feelings of the introduction you made on both sides get associated with you. So that leads us into the one quick question on relationships before we move on to reputation. So how are you keeping track for yourself on your A's? Do you have a CRM that you like? You're just a system, you're a systems guy, sounds like. So what do you like?
Yeah. So, the number 2 thing I ever did in my career, number 1 was getting a coach. Number 2 was a CRM. Number 3 was an assistant. On the CRM, I use RealNex, RealNex.com. RealNex is a commercial real estate brokerage software, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter which CRM you get, quite frankly, as long as you use it. Okay. A lot of brokers have CRMs. They don't use it to its capacity.
Yeah.
So in my CRMs, when I built my database many years ago and I imported all these properties and I imported all these owners, I never made it a thing to call a certain number of people a day. Like, that's what a lot of brokerages do is they say, "Hey, you got to make 100 calls today and 100 calls tomorrow." And nobody ever does any research. I only make 3 or 4 calls a day because I want to know everything about that human being before I call them. So I use my CRM where I'll go and find the person's picture because I want to know how old they are. I want to know maybe what race they are. I want to know what their background pictures are on their Facebook profile. I want to know, all like that all goes into sort of a picture that you may gather prior to a phone call. And I get all this stuff on social media. I want to know what deals they own and where they are, their phone numbers, articles they wrote, articles written about them, whether they were in jail anytime. Like, I look up all that. Like, I have a full profile that my assistant puts together. I know things about people that they would be freaked out that I knew about it, but it's all public record.
Right.
And I don't dump that stuff on a phone call, especially in the first couple of phone calls, all the things I know. It just helps me bond. Right. So when I go to make a phone call, "Hey, Matt, my name's Beau Beery. I see you own so-and-so apartments. Hey, by the way, when I was looking up your phone number, I found you on LinkedIn. You and I know George together. Man, remind me to tell you about George, what he did in college one year." Right. So
that's a good way to start off.
Right. It's really cool. And so in the CRM, what I do is a CRM allows you to track, take notes and track history. Right. So everything I'm learning about a person, I'm typing in, okay, Matt loves, doing the drums. He's natural at it, blah, blah, blah. And Matt did this, and Matt went to this school, and Matt's married to so-and-so, and his kids do this. And so, in subsequent phone calls, I can drop little things when appropriate, right? That builds more of that relationship. And CRMs allow you to take those notes so you can see them next time. Then CRMs allow you to schedule the next call. That's the number one highest profitable thing a CRM does for you, is allow you to schedule these calls every time you talk to them. If you don't schedule them, they fall off the cliff.
Yeah.
You don't even know they're in your CRM. You schedule the next call every single time. And I have a cadence. Like I said, rank A's get a call no less than every 60 days. Okay. My rank B's are every quarter, and my rank C's are 1 to 2 times a year. But all of them, A, B's, and C's, are part of my drip marketing program every month. Every month, every human being gets an email from me, or they're going to see me on social media, or they're going to get a mailing from me or something, right? Yeah. But my talk time is spent with the A's.
Yeah, I think residential agents have a hard time with that for a couple of reasons. Number one, because that size of a database sounds too small. Obviously, in commercial, it's great, but it sounds too small to a residential agent. So then, instead of taking the next step and going, well, I just need to have a lot of people in my C's, that maybe that group of people needs to be a bit bigger, but I still need to have those A's and B's.
The residential
they go screaming off in the other direction.
Yeah, the residential agent A's should be influential people, right? So I used to own a Coldwell Banker, and I owned a Coldwell Banker commercial, right? And, listen, only a very small percentage of the residential agents listening to this are ever going to do what I tell them, because that's just how it is, right? right? But I'm telling you, if your A's can be spent concentrating on those with influence in your communities, the people who can spread your name to everyone who owns homes, who can talk about you at parties, who can mention you at philanthropic events, those are the people that have tremendous reach, right? The cool thing about being a residential agent is everyone is your customer. Very few people are my customer, right? Very few people in the world are my customer. And so, find the guys who own big businesses, who, sponsor charities, who own lots of properties, people who love them, whatever it is, like those are the people who can do the most for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Even a radio host. And how you might find yourself getting, super cheap remnant time where they'll plug you on the radio or something like that. You just, the possibilities for are endless if you look at it as building relationships with a really core group of influential people. And for some reason that totally escapes most residential agents. We've had guests talk about it, but yeah.
Well, and algorithms are super important for residential agents too. Like for what I mean by that is, I'll just use it as an example for residential agents. In my business, I track the average time someone owns an asset before they sell it. Okay. And I track it by buyer. Like I know mom and pops sell every so-and-so months. I know syndications hold it for so many months. I know REITs hold it for so many months. In the residential business, if you've been in long enough and tracked each person you've worked with, you can start to create Excel spreadsheets or use your CRM or whatever to see, oh, well, Bob and Mary looks like they move every 2 years because they're looking to roll their capital gains into the next house, right? Yeah. And so those can be your A's. Like if you're constantly sending them value add stuff about what houses are going for and what markets absorption is doing, all these things, and you've got 60 people that you've been tracking that trade every 2 to 3 years, that's a great A group, right? Yeah. I mean, think about if you can do 60 transactions every 2 years with the same people.
Mm-hmm. Well, so there's technology now to where you can basically export your whole database. Let's say you have a database of 2,000 people as a residential agent. You can go to a company like my co-host brother runs one where you can just say like, hey, here's my database. Run it through your data algorithm and spit out a list of the people that are most likely to list their home in the next 90 days. And they'll go, okay, great. Here it is. Here's a list. Like, boom. You can't get much better A's than that. Okay. So let's finish out with the reputation stuff. So I'm curious with all the content that you put out, and of course you're very focused on delivering value to people and making sure that when you reach out to them, they have a positive association with your name. What do you think that association is because of all the work that you put in?
I think first and foremost, people probably look at me as like a statistician, right? So I'm very numbers driven. I'm very data driven, and it's both purposeful and true. Like that is something that I enjoy, number one, but even if I didn't enjoy it, I would force myself to do that in my business because it's what my customers want to know. Right. And by doing so, you become known as the expert. So I have lots of people, lots of investors who call me about deals they are involved in with other brokers that don't involve me at all to get my opinion because they know I have the data. I track it every day. I have an assistant who all that person does is that stuff for me. Right. Okay. So that's super important. And then the other part is, I'm sorry, what was the question?
We're talking about reputation, which is interesting because for you to put yourself out there and to really lean into the numbers thing is interesting because from the outside looking in, you'd think, oh, that wouldn't make you very unique. The fact that you're engaging and outgoing and so personable, like you'd think you'd lean into that even more because that seems to set you apart in a very stodgy kind of stuffed shirt industry. So I don't know, maybe you've done both with the video.
Well, so the second part, the part I just forgotten, and then you just reminded me, thank you for that, was bringing like wild, crazy, funny personality, right? Okay, because I know I'm always trying to do the opposite of what others may be doing in my business. As long as that opposite doesn't hurt you, do it, right? So in my business, everybody is stuffy. Nobody puts out a personality because they're afraid maybe they won't get hired, right? Right. And so I do funny videos. I do funny pictures. I put out funny captions. I make fun of myself. I do wild things. I mean, so, and do I lose some people because of that? Probably so, right? But probably that kind of person I wouldn't jive anyway. If they don't have a sense of humor, life's short, right? I'd rather do business with folks who we jive with, right? Yeah. But I think I do a lot more business as a result of showing personality, combined with a statistician, combined with, oh, by the way, he does a lot of deals, right?
Yes.
So that's kind of the reputation aura I try to put out, but you want to capitalize on your strengths.
Yeah, we have, and we've always had like a large portion of kind of like beginner agents. And yeah, I think for anyone that's relatively new in the business, it makes sense to lean hard into the analytics of the business, because you've got to do something. And obviously you and I both look probably younger than we really are. When I got into real estate, I was 25 and I probably looked like I was 12. So like I did the same thing. Like I got a coaching program. Like I sat down and had these really interesting kind of consultative discussions with people, because like I knew like I look really young. Like it's very obvious I've not been in this business for a long time. Like I have to make up for that. And there's a lot of people in the audience that are in that same boat. So yeah, like having like, yeah, by all means, show your personality, be yourself, be funny, be self-deprecating, be all that. That all works when it's tempered with, I know what the F I'm doing and here's the proof of it. Yeah. So like those two things really have to go hand in hand.
I always felt like if I was a residential agent, the number one basis for all the stats that I would run in the reports would be the closings and the property appraiser websites, right? So I would export every single type of home I sell. Like let's say a residential agent only sells homes that are no more than 20 years old. They have to be $500,000 or more, 3,000 square feet or more, and only in the Northeast. I would export every single month all those closings. And once you have them on a spreadsheet, like square footage, number of bedrooms, whether it has a pool or not, all these different metrics, you would be shocked at how many reports you could run from an Excel spreadsheet of every closing you track. And you could put things out like, here is the average closing price per square foot of 3-bedroom, 2-baths that are between 2,000 and 3,000 square feet in the Northeast section of Gainesville, right? And did you know that the average age of a $1 million to $2 million home is X in Charlotte, North Carolina? All these things you can get. There's so much stuff that you can track. It's really, really cool. As long as you do it and it's something that you can read in 10 seconds or less, people will love you.
Yeah, that is a great tip. And it shows that you're just, even if they don't know it's an assistant that's tracking a lot of the stuff for you. And once you get better at it, you get good at kind of teasing out those little interesting statistics out of a lot of data. Yeah, you don't have to share a lot of data. Just sharing one really interesting little factoid, it shows that, hey man, there's a whole lot of work being done under the surface here that we're doing to keep on track, to keep our finger on the pulse, basically what's going on. So yeah, it's just one of those little things that conveys a lot in a very short, consumable little bit of information. I love it.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I just realized what time it is. So I know you've got an appointment to move on to. So I want to honor your time. What's the best way for people to reach out? Obviously, you mentioned kind of where you're at and what you do. What's the best way to connect in case they have somebody to send your way?
Yeah, 3 ways. And this is whether you're a residential agent or commercial agent, doesn't matter. You should connect with me in these 3 ways, because I think you'll pull some information from these 3 sources that will be helpful for you, and steal anything you want from my sources, by the way. The number one is my website, beaubeery.com, BeauBeery. The reason you want to visit there is when you go to my landing page, I want you to see how I talk to the customer. See all the stats I have on there. Click on resources at the top and see all the different templates I provide for free. Look at all the markets I cover. Click on any market. Look at all the stats I show, right? And think about how can you reproduce that kind of thing for your product type in your markets, and how to display it, right? The second way is my YouTube channel. It's called Beau Knows Multifamily, BEAU Knows Multifamily, taken from the Bo Jackson back in the day. And so you'll see I have playlists for beginning investors, advanced investors, how to do market analysis. You'll see my crazy, funny property tour videos. Watch those, right? Any ideas you can get, take those and see the kind of things I do and how you can do it for yourself. And then the last one is I wrote a book, and it's about multifamily investors, but even if you're a residential agent or an office agent watching this, this is what the book looks like. It's on hardcover on Amazon. It's on Audible. It's on Kindle. The reason you want to read this is my Jerry Maguire document. If you guys ever watched Jerry Maguire, the whole thing started where he wrote this book basically that got him fired. That's about how you build this business with a reputation in mind and how you work with brokers. It was my Jerry Maguire that I wanted to get to customers, right? And it has really taken off and people love it. And it's great for brokers to read because it's something where if you can get that in the hands of the folks you work with, they will thank you for it. It will open their eyes to the way it's the back end secret way that how brokers and sellers speak to each other, how they choose buyers, how they choose investors. It's an inside look, and I think your customers will love to read it.
Man, that's fantastic, man. Well, I've really enjoyed the conversation, and I really appreciate you, the fact that you've got enough of a background. There's a crossover with the residential stuff that you can take the things that you're doing now and relate it back to the people that are listening. You know, we've interviewed a lot of people from, you know, other niches of the real estate world, and not everybody has that ability to kind of mix and match and relate, you know, the different corners and niches of the real estate world to each other. So this has been awesome. I really, really appreciate you being here, Beau.
No, man, thanks for the opportunity. You've got such a huge reach and you're super respected. So I appreciate being on the cast, brother.
Thanks so much.